Please help me, my daughter. I am here, mother. Drink this. Thank you. Please don't
Please,
leave me
don't
here.
leave me here.
Okay,
The
mama.
weak voice sounded like it came from the shadows. Zara froze. Her heart started beating fast as she looked around the empty cemetery road. Who is there? She asked carefully. Please, help me. The voice was faint now. Zara slowly walked closer to the rusted iron gate of the old cemetery. Then she saw it. A frail old woman lying on the ground beside the gate, her body shaking, her clothes dusty and torn. Oh no, Zara whispered. The old woman lifted her trembling hand. Water, please. Zara quickly dropped her small cloth bag and rushed to her side. Don't worry, Zara said gently. I am here now. The old woman grabbed her wrist weakly. Her cloudy eyes stared straight into Zara's face. Then she whispered something that made Zara's entire body go cold. Ush, you finally came. Zara's breath stopped, because she had never seen this woman before. Earlier that day, the sun had just risen over the small village of Umucheke, painting the sky with soft orange light. Roosters crowed loudly, smoke rose from small kitchens as women prepared breakfast for their families. But in a tiny corner near the village market, a thin young girl was already awake. That girl was Zara. She sat on a wooden bench outside a small roadside shop, tying the straps of her worn sandals. Her stomach growled softly. She had not eaten since the previous afternoon. Still, Zara smiled quietly to herself. Today will be a good day, she whispered. Zara always said that to herself every morning, even when things were hard, even when she had nothing. Because Zara believed that if she stayed kind and worked hard, something good would happen someday. The shop owner, Mama Bisi, stepped outside holding a broom. You are here already, the woman said with surprise. Zara stood quickly. Yes, Mama Bisi, I came early to sweep the front of the shop. Mama Bisi looked at the girl carefully. Zara was only 16 years old, but life had already made her stronger than most adults. Her dress was simple and faded, her sandals were worn, but her eyes were bright and full of kindness. Mama Bisi sighed. You work too much for someone so young. Zara shook her head gently. It's okay. Work helps me forget hunger. Mama Bisi paused, her face softened. After sweeping, come inside, she said quietly. I will give you some leftover bread. Zara's eyes lit up. Thank you. Mama Bisi. She quickly picked up the broom and began sweeping the dusty ground in front of the shop. People passing through the market greeted her warmly. Good morning, Zara. Morning, my child. Everyone in Umucheke knew Zara, not because she was rich, not because she had a big family, but because she was kind to everyone. She helped old people carry their bags. She cleaned shops. She fetched water for widows. She did anything she could just to survive. Yet no one ever heard Zara complain. Zara had been alone for most of her life. Her parents died when she was very young. After that, she moved from house to house, helping people with chores in exchange for food. Some families were kind, others were not. But Zara never allowed bitterness to enter her heart. The village elders often said something strange about her. That girl, her spirit is different. God has placed something special in her heart. But no one knew how true those words were. Not yet. That day was harder than usual. By noon, the sun was blazing hot. Zara had already carried water for an old woman, helped a carpenter clean wood scraps, and washed plates at a roadside food stall. Her arms ached. Her feet hurt, but she was grateful. At least she had eaten the bread Mama Bisi gave her. By evening, the sky slowly turned purple. Birds began flying back to their nests. Zara finished helping a woman pack tomatoes into baskets at the market. The woman handed her a small coin. Thank you, my child, Zara smiled. Thank you, Ma. She slipped the coin into her cloth bag. Then she began the long walk back toward the small abandoned hut where she sometimes slept. But the shortest road passed beside the old cemetery. Most villagers avoided that path, especially in the evening. Some people believed the place was haunted. Others believed strange things happened there after sunset. But Zara never feared the cemetery. Dead people cannot hurt the living, she often said. So she walked calmly along the quiet dirt road. The wind rustled the tall grass around the cemetery fence. Crickets chirped. The sky slowly darkened. Everything felt peaceful, until she heard something strange, a weak sound, almost like someone crying. Zara stopped walking. She listened carefully. There it was again. A faint whisper. Help! Me! Her heart began to pound. The road was empty. The cemetery gate stood half open, its rusty metal creaking softly in the wind. And then Zara noticed something on the ground near the gate. A shape, a person. Her fear disappeared instantly. Zara ran toward the figure, and that was when she saw the old woman lying there. The woman looked extremely weak. Her grey hair was messy. Her clothes were dusty and torn. Her skin looked pale and dry. She was barely breathing. Zara quickly knelt beside her. "Oh no." She gently lifted the woman's head onto her lap. "Can you hear me?" The old woman's eyelids moved slightly. "Water," she whispered. Zara immediately opened her small cloth bag. Inside was a small bottle with the little water she had saved for herself. Without thinking twice, Zara lifted the bottle to the woman's lips. "Drink slowly," she said softly. The woman swallowed weakly. And then Zara took out the small piece of roasted yam she had planned to eat later. She broke it into tiny pieces. "Eat this," Zara said. The old woman chewed slowly. After a few moments, her breathing became calmer. The wind blew gently across the cemetery road. Zara looked around. There was no one else. Who would leave an old woman like this? "Who brought you here?" Zara asked gently. The old woman did not answer. Instead, she slowly opened her eyes and stared at Zara's face, not like a stranger, but like someone who had been waiting a long time. Then she reached out and grabbed Zara's wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "You," she whispered. Zara blinked in confusion. "Me?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You finally came." Zara's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" The old woman's voice trembled. I knew one day you would find me here." Zara stared at her, completely confused. "I don't understand. I've never seen you before." The woman slowly shook her head. Her next words made Zara's entire body freeze. "I have been looking for you. For 16 years. Zara's breath caught. "Looking for me?" The old woman's eyes suddenly became serious, as if she was gathering the last strength in her body. "There is something you must know." She coughed weakly. Zara quickly supported her. "Don't talk too much. You need to rest." But the woman grabbed Zara's hand tighter. "No. Listen carefully." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Your parents—" Zara's heart pounded loudly. "What about them?" The old woman leaned closer, and what she whispered next made Zara feel like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. And because the old woman said something that no one in the village had ever told Zara before, and at that exact moment, footsteps suddenly echoed from the dark road behind them. Zara turned quickly. 3 shadowy figures were walking toward the cemetery gate, and one of them said in a cold voice, "There she is." Zara's heart stopped, because the men were not looking at the old woman, they were staring directly at her, and the tallest man slowly said, "Don't let the girl escape." The tall man's voice sliced through the evening air. "Don't let the girl escape." Zara's heart slammed against her chest. Her hands tightened around the old woman as she slowly turned toward the 3 men walking closer to the cemetery gate. The road behind them was dark. Only the fading orange light of sunset revealed their figures. They were strangers, and something about the way they moved made Zara feel cold inside. The tallest man stepped forward first. He was large, with a thick beard and a deep scar running across his cheek. Behind him stood 2 younger men. Both looked strong, both looked dangerous. Zara swallowed nervously. "Who are you?" she asked. None of them answered. Instead, the tall man pointed toward the old woman lying on Zara's lap. "You found her," he said slowly. Zara's confusion grew. "Yes. She was lying here. She's very sick." The men exchanged strange looks. Then the second man laughed quietly. "Well, that saves us some time." Zara's stomach twisted. Something was very wrong. The old woman suddenly grabbed Zara's hand again. Her fingers trembled. "Listen to me," she whispered urgently. Zara bent down closer. "You must run." Zara blinked in shock. "What?" The woman's voice grew weak but serious. "Those men, they are not here to help." The tall man chuckled. "Oh, we're definitely here to help," he said coldly. He stepped closer, but the old woman spoke again before he reached them. "Zara, listen carefully." Zara froze. Her heart skipped. "How do you know my name?" she whispered. The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "Because I was there the night you were born." Zara's entire body went still. The men stopped smiling. The tall man's face darkened. "Enough," he snapped, but the old woman ignored him. She held Zara's hand tightly. "You are not an orphan," she whispered. Zara felt dizzy. "What?" The old woman struggled to breathe. "Your parents were not poor villagers," the tall man suddenly shouted. "Silence," but the old woman spoke again, her voice barely audible. "Your father was one of the richest men in this region." Zara's head spun. "That's impossible," she said quickly. "My parents died when I was small." The old woman's eyes widened. "No, they didn't." The words hung in the air like thunder. Before Zara could respond, the tall man rushed forward. "Grab the girl." Everything happened at once. One of the men lunged toward Zara, but Zara reacted fast. She jumped to her feet, still holding the old woman. "Leave us alone," she shouted. The second man laughed again. "You really think you can stop us?" Zara backed away slowly. Her heart pounded louder with every step. The old woman whispered weakly, "The cemetery. Run through the cemetery." Zara stared at her. "But run!" The men rushed forward. Zara didn't think. She ran. She pushed open the rusted cemetery gate and dashed inside. The tall grass scratched her legs as she ran between old tombstones. Behind her, the men shouted, "After her!" Their footsteps thundered behind her. Zara's breathing grew heavy. The old woman's weight on her shoulder slowed her down, but she refused to leave her behind. "Just a little further," Zara whispered. The moon began rising above the cemetery. Shadows stretched across the graves. The wind blew through the trees. Everything felt eerie. Suddenly, Zara tripped over a stone. She fell hard onto the ground. The old woman groaned. The men were getting closer. Zara could hear their voices now. "She's inside. Search everywhere." Panic filled her chest. Zara quickly pulled the old woman behind a large stone tomb. They crouched low, both of them breathing quietly. Footsteps approached. Crunch, crunch. One of the men walked only a few steps away. Zara covered her mouth. Her heart felt like it would explode. The man looked around. Then he kicked a small stone angrily. "Where did she go?" Another voice answered. "She can't leave the cemetery. Spread out." The footsteps moved away slowly. Zara released a silent breath. The old woman suddenly coughed. Zara quickly held her. "Please, stay quiet." The woman nodded weakly, but then she whispered again, "Zara, you must know the truth." Zara shook her head quickly. "This is not the time. It is the only time." Zara looked at her. The old woman's eyes were filled with urgency. "They will never stop looking for you." Zara's chest tightened. "Why?" The woman spoke slowly. Because you are the last person standing between them and your father's fortune." Zara felt the words hit her like lightning. "My father?" "Yes." "But you said my parents didn't die." The woman nodded weakly. "They didn't die that night." Zara's heart stopped. "Then where are they?" The old woman hesitated. Her face became pale. "Your father was betrayed," she said quietly, "by someone he trusted." Zara's mind raced. "Who?" Before the woman could answer, a flashlight beam suddenly cut across the darkness. "There!" Zara gasped. One of the men had spotted them. The tall man's voice echoed through the cemetery. "I knew she was hiding somewhere." The three men rushed toward them. Zara jumped to her feet again. "What do we do?" she whispered urgently. The old woman looked toward the far end of the cemetery. There's a back path," she said weakly. "It leads into the forest." Zara nodded. She helped the woman stand, but the tall man shouted again. "You won't escape." Zara ran. Branches scratched her arms as she pushed through thick bushes. Behind her, the men crashed through the grass. The chase was getting closer. Her legs burned, her lungs ached, but she kept running. Suddenly, the old woman stumbled. Zara caught her. "I can't run anymore," the woman whispered. Zara's eyes filled with fear. "We're almost there." But the woman shook her head. "No." She reached inside her torn dress and pulled out a small object, a gold necklace. The pendant glowed faintly in the moonlight. Zara stared at it. "What is this?" The woman placed it in Zara's hand. "You must keep this safe." Zara frowned. "Why?" The old woman looked directly into her eyes. "Because that necklace proves who you really are." Zara's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" The woman whispered the words slowly. "You are not just a village girl, Zara." She paused, then she revealed something that made Zara's entire world collapse. "You are the rightful heir to the Okoria family empire." Zara's breath stopped. The footsteps behind them grew louder. The tall man shouted again, "She's right there." The old woman grabbed Zara's arm one last time. "Run into the forest," she whispered. "But I will slow them down." Zara shook her head quickly. "No." But the old woman pushed her away. "Go." The men burst through the bushes. Zara hesitated, her eyes filled with tears. Then she turned and ran into the dark forest. Behind her, she heard the tall man shouting, and the old woman screaming. Then, a loud gunshot exploded through the night. Zara froze. Her heart stopped beating. Slowly, she turned around, and what she saw in the moonlight made her blood run cold. Because the men were no longer chasing her, they were standing over the old woman, and the tall man was holding a gun. But then something even more terrifying happened. The man slowly lifted his phone and said one sentence that made Zara realize the danger was far bigger than she imagined. "Sir, we found the girl." The tall man's voice echoed through the dark cemetery. "Sir, we found the girl." Zara froze where she stood among the thick trees of the forest. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared the men would hear it. She crouched low behind a wide tree trunk, gripping the gold necklace the old woman had given her. The metal felt cold in her shaking hands. The tall man continued speaking into the phone. "Yes, she's here." A short pause. Zara tried to breathe quietly. Then the man spoke again. "But there is a problem." Another pause. Zara strained to hear. She escaped into the forest. The man listened again, then nodded slowly. "Understood." He ended the call. For a moment the night became very quiet. Then the second man asked nervously, "What did he say?" The tall man's expression became hard. "He said we cannot fail." The third man looked toward the forest. "But the girl is gone." The tall man smiled slowly. "Not for long." He turned toward the old woman lying weakly on the ground. Zara's stomach twisted when she saw them surrounding her. "Aha, where did she go?" the tall man asked. The old woman said nothing. Her eyes were half closed. The tall man knelt beside her. "You know who I am," he said quietly. The woman looked at him weakly. "Yes." "And you know what happens when people refuse to cooperate?" The woman slowly shook her head. "I will never help you." The tall man's smile disappeared. He grabbed her collar. "You already did." The woman coughed softly. "Too late." The tall man's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" The woman slowly lifted her trembling hand and pointed toward the forest. "She already knows." The tall man's face darkened. "Knows what?" The woman's voice was barely a whisper. "Who she really is." The tall man stood up suddenly, his face filled with rage. "You foolish old woman." He turned toward the forest. "Ah, find her," he ordered. "Now." The two younger men rushed toward the trees. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Zara quickly ducked lower behind the tree. Her breathing became shallow. The necklace felt heavy in her hand. The rightful heir to the Okori family empire. The words echoed inside her head. It sounded impossible. Zara had grown up sleeping on market stalls. She had begged for food. She had washed plates for coins. How could she belong to a powerful family? Her thoughts raced. Then another memory came back to her. Something strange, something she had never understood before. Zara was only 5 years old. She remembered sitting beside a woman she called Auntie Ada. The woman had raised her for a short time after her parents disappeared. One night, Zara had asked a simple question. "Where are my parents?" Auntie Ada had looked very uncomfortable. "They traveled far away." "But why didn't they take me with them?" The woman hesitated. "Because they wanted you to be safe." Zara had not understood that answer. "How is staying here safe?" Auntie Ada had hugged her tightly. "You will understand when you are older." But Zara never did, because only 2 months later, Auntie Ada suddenly disappeared, and Zara was left alone again. The forest around her rustled. Zara snapped back to reality. The men were searching closer now. Flashlights moved through the trees. She must be hiding nearby. "Spread out." Zara looked around quickly. The forest was thick. But the men were strong and fast. If they caught her, she didn't even want to imagine what would happen. She slowly opened her hand again. And the gold necklace glimmered in the moonlight. The pendant had a strange symbol carved into it, a lion standing above a crown. Zara frowned. She had never seen this symbol before, but something about it felt familiar. Suddenly, a branch snapped nearby. Zara's heart jumped. One of the men was walking directly toward her. The beam of his flashlight swept across the trees. Zara crouched lower. Her body trembled. The man came closer, 5 steps away. 4, 3. Then suddenly, a loud scream echoed from the cemetery behind them. All 3 men turned. "What was that?" one shouted. The tall man looked confused. "That old woman should be unconscious." Another scream followed, but this time it sounded different. Not weak, not helpless. It sounded powerful. The tall man's face changed. "Tut, stay here," he told the others. He quickly ran back toward the cemetery. The other 2 men hesitated. "Should we follow him?" "No," the second man said. "He told us to find the girl." They turned back toward the forest. Zara realized something important. The distraction had given her a chance. She slowly began crawling deeper into the forest, step by step, carefully, quietly. Then suddenly, a strong hand grabbed her shoulder. Zara gasped and turned quickly, but instead of one of the men, she saw a young man staring at her. He looked about 20 years old, tall, athletic. His eyes were sharp but calm. He quickly placed a finger over his lips. "Shh!" Zara stared at him in shock. "Who are you?" she whispered. The young man glanced toward the searching men. "They are close." He grabbed her hand gently. "Call, come with me." Zara pulled her hand back. "I don't even know you." The young man sighed. "I know." Then he said something that made Zara freeze. But your father trusted me. Zara's eyes widened. My father? The young man nodded. Yes. Before Zara could ask anything else, the flashlight beams moved closer again. The young man quickly pulled Zara behind a thick bush. The two men passed by only a few steps away. One of them muttered angrily, "She can't disappear into thin air." They continued searching. Zara turned back to the young man. "How do you know my father?" she whispered. The young man hesitated, then he spoke quietly. "My name is Daniel." Zara waited. "And your father?" Daniel's face became serious. "Was once the most powerful businessman in this entire region." Zara felt dizzy again. "But the old woman said he was betrayed." Daniel nodded slowly. "That is true." Zara swallowed. "Who betrayed him?" Daniel looked toward the cemetery. His expression darkened. "The same man who just sent those men to capture you." Zara's stomach dropped. "Who is he?" Daniel hesitated. Then he said the name slowly. "Chief Bartholomew." Zara's breath stopped. Everyone in the village knew that name. Chief Bartholomew was the richest and most feared man in the entire region. He owned companies, land, and even private security guards. People whispered that he controlled everything. But Zara had never imagined she could be connected to him. Daniel continued quietly. "Chief Bartholomew destroyed your father's life 16 years ago." Zara felt her knees weaken. "Why?" Daniel's voice lowered. "One, because your father refused to give him control of the Okorie Empire." Zara stared at him. "And now?" Daniel's eyes turned serious. "Now he wants the last thing standing between him and that empire." Zara whispered the question she was afraid to ask. "Me?" Daniel nodded. "Yes." Zara looked down at the necklace again. Her mind was spinning. "But I don't even know how to run a business." Daniel gave a small, sad smile. "That's not what he fears." Zara frowned. "Then what?" Daniel leaned closer, and what he said next made Zara's heart race. "Because somewhere, hidden safely, there is a document." Zara blinked. "What document?" Daniel spoke slowly. "The legal paper that proves you are the only true heir to everything your father owned." Zara's breath caught. "Where is it?" Daniel hesitated. "That's the problem." Zara's heart pounded again. "What?" Daniel looked directly into her eyes. "No one knows." Zara stared at him. "But if the paper is never found—" Daniel finished the sentence quietly. "Chief Bartholomew will take everything." Zara felt fear creeping into her chest. "What do we do?" Daniel opened his mouth to answer, but suddenly the forest exploded with bright light. Dozens of flashlights turned on at once. Voices shouted from every direction. "There they are!" Daniel's face changed instantly. "How did they find us?" Zara looked around in panic. Men were surrounding them from every side. Then a slow clap echoed through the trees. Someone stepped forward from the darkness, a tall man wearing an expensive suit. His voice was calm, cold, and powerful. "Finally." Daniel's face turned pale. Zara whispered nervously, "Who is that?" Daniel answered quietly, "Chief Bartholomew." The man smiled slowly as he stared directly at Zara. Well. He folded his hands behind his back. "I have been searching for you a very long time." Zara's heart began racing again. The chief tilted his head. Then he said the words that made the night suddenly feel even more dangerous. "Welcome home, Zara Okorie." The name echoed through the dark forest like thunder. Zara's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. No one had ever called her that before. All her life, she had simply been Zara, the poor orphan girl of Umucheke village. But the powerful man standing in front of her spoke the name with confidence, as if it had always belonged to her. Daniel slowly stepped in front of Zara. His voice was calm but tense. "My Chief Bartholomew, stay away from her." The chief laughed softly. "You are still brave, Daniel." "I admire that." His eyes moved back to Zara. "But bravery will not change the truth." Zara swallowed nervously. "What truth?" The chief spread his arms slightly. "The truth that you are the daughter of Gabriel Okorie." The name meant nothing to Zara, but Daniel's face changed instantly. His fists tightened. "Don't say his name," Daniel warned. The chief ignored him. 16 years ago, the chief continued calmly, your father built one of the biggest business empires in the entire region." Zara felt the forest spinning around her. "That can't be true," she whispered. "I grew up with nothing." The chief nodded slowly. "Exactly." He began walking slowly around her. "Your father owned companies, factories, art land, even banks." Zara stared at him. "Then why was I living in the streets?" The chief smiled faintly. "Because powerful men have powerful enemies." Daniel suddenly shouted, "Stop lying to her!" The chief's smile vanished. Oh, Daniel, I am not lying. He turned back to Zara. Your father trusted the wrong people? Zara's chest tightened. Who? The chief looked directly into her eyes. Me. Daniel clenched his teeth. You're finally admitting it. The chief chuckled. I never denied it. Zara felt cold. You betrayed my father. The chief sighed as if remembering an old story. Your father was too stubborn. He walked slowly across the forest clearing. I offered him a partnership. Daniel scoffed. You offered to steal his company. The chief shrugged. Business is war. Zara's voice trembled. What happened to my parents? For the first time, the chief paused. Then he spoke slowly. Your father refused my offer. Daniel interrupted angrily. So you destroyed him? The chief's eyes flashed. He destroyed himself. Zara shook her head. Stop talking in riddles. Tell me what happened. The forest became quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then the chief spoke again. There was an accident. Zara's stomach twisted. What accident? A fire, the chief said calmly. Daniel's fists clenched harder. A fire that you started. The chief laughed softly. You always did enjoy dramatic stories. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. My parents died in that fire. The chief studied her face carefully. No, Zara blinked. No? Daniel turned to her slowly. Your mother survived. Zara's breath stopped. My mother is alive? Daniel nodded. Yes. The world around Zara felt unreal. Where is she? Daniel hesitated, then he looked toward the chief. The chief smiled. That is the interesting part. Zara's heart pounded. Tell me. The chief walked closer. Your mother disappeared that night. Zara's mind spun. What do you mean disappeared? No one has seen her since. Zara's voice trembled. She wouldn't leave me. The chief tilted his head. Are you sure? Daniel stepped forward angrily. Don't twist the truth. Zara looked between them. What truth? Daniel took a deep breath. Your mother ran away because the chief was hunting your family. The chief laughed loudly. Oh, Daniel, you still believe that foolish story? Zara grabbed Daniel's arm. Is it true? Daniel looked at her seriously. Yes. But the chief spoke again. Your mother didn't run away from me. Zara turned to him. Then why did she leave? The chief's smile returned. Because she took something with her. Zara frowned. What? The chief leaned closer. The one thing that could destroy me. Daniel's eyes widened. You mean the document? The chief nodded slowly. Yes. Zara looked confused. What document? Daniel explained quietly. The legal document your father created before the fire. Zara stared at him. What does it say? Daniel answered carefully. It proves that all of the Okori Empire belongs to you. Zara felt her heart racing again. But if my mother has it? Daniel nodded. She is the only person who knows where it is, Zara whispered softly. Then we must find her. The chief chuckled again. That would be very difficult. Zara glared at him. Why? The chief's voice became cold. Because she has been missing for 16 years. Zara's chest tightened. You mean she could be dead? The chief shrugged. Possibly. Daniel shook his head. No. The chief looked amused. You still believe she is alive? Daniel answered firmly. Yes. Zara looked at him quickly. You know something. Daniel hesitated. The chief laughed again. Oh, this is wonderful. He looked at Daniel with amusement. You didn't tell her yet? Zara's heart pounded again. Tell me what? Daniel looked torn. Zara, there's something I discovered recently. The chief clapped his hands slowly. Finally, the truth arrives. Zara grabbed Daniel's arm again. Please tell me. Daniel took a deep breath. Oh, I found evidence that your mother was seen. Zara leaned closer. Seen where? Daniel spoke the words slowly. 3 months ago, Zara gasped. She's alive? Daniel nodded. Yes. Tears filled Zara's eyes. Where is she? Daniel hesitated again. Somewhere in Lagos. The chief smiled wider. That's the same information I received. Zara turned sharply. You knew? The chief nodded. Of course. Her voice rose. Then why didn't you find her? The chief laughed quietly. Oh, I tried. Zara's stomach twisted. What happened? The chief's eyes darkened. She vanished again. Daniel spoke quickly. Because she knew you were looking for her. Zara's heart pounded harder. So she's hiding? Daniel nodded. Yes. Zara whispered softly. Why would she hide from me? The chief answered before Daniel could. Because she doesn't know where you are. Zara fell silent. For 16 years her mother had been searching too, just like the old woman had said. Then suddenly Zara remembered something. The old woman. Daniel looked confused. What old woman? Zara spoke quickly. She said she was there when I was born. Daniel's eyes widened. The woman near the cemetery? Zara nodded. Yes. The chief's smile disappeared. You should not worry about her anymore. Zara felt fear again. What did you do to her? The chief gave a small shrug. She served her purpose. Daniel stepped forward angrily. You killed her. The chief didn't respond, but his silence answered everything. Zara felt tears burning her eyes. She helped me. The chief looked bored. People die every day. Zara's hands trembled. How can you say that? The chief sighed. You are too emotional. Then his voice became serious. But this conversation has gone on long enough. He raised his hand. Immediately several armed men stepped forward. Daniel grabbed Zara's hand. Stay behind me. The chief spoke calmly. You have two choices. Zara stared at him. What choices? The chief's voice became smooth. You can come with me peacefully, Daniel shouted. Don't listen to him. But the chief continued, and I will help you find your mother. Zara's heart stopped. But if you refuse, he gestured to the armed men surrounding them. Things may become very unpleasant, Daniel whispered urgently. He's lying. Zara looked at him. You don't know that. Daniel's voice was firm. Yes, I do. The chief smiled again. You see, Zara, Daniel has always been very loyal to your father. Zara blinked. Was? Daniel looked uneasy. The chief's smile widened. Should I tell her the truth? Zara's heart began racing again. What truth? The chief's voice became dangerously calm. The truth about what Daniel did 16 years ago. Daniel's face turned pale. Don't. Zara stared at him. What is he talking about? The chief leaned closer and whispered the sentence that made Zara's world crash again. Daniel was the last person who saw your father alive the night of the fire. Zara's eyes widened slowly. She turned toward Daniel, and her voice trembled as she asked the question she feared most. Daniel. Her heart pounded violently. Were you part of the betrayal? Daniel's silence lasted only a few seconds. But in that moment, it felt like forever. Daniel did not answer. The forest felt silent. Too silent. Zara's heart pounded loudly in her chest as she stared at him. Daniel, she whispered again. His face was tense, pain flashed in his eyes, but he still said nothing. Chief Bartholomew smiled slowly. You see, he said calmly, silence often tells the truth better than words. Zara's stomach twisted, her voice trembled. Daniel, please. Daniel finally looked at her. His voice was low. I never betrayed your father. Chief Bartholomew laughed loudly. That is not what the evidence says. Zara's mind raced. What evidence? The chief folded his arms. The night of the fire, Daniel was the last man inside the mansion. Daniel clenched his fists. I was trying to save him. The chief tilted his head. Han, is that what you told yourself? Zara stepped closer. What happened that night? Daniel looked at her with deep regret. I worked for your father as a security trainee. Zara listened carefully. He trusted me, Daniel continued. I was young, but he believed I would always protect his family. The chief chuckled. Protect? That is not what happened. Daniel ignored him. That night, the mansion caught fire. Zara's chest tightened. From what? Daniel looked toward Chief Bartholomew. Someone set it. The chief smiled faintly. Still accusing me after all these years. Daniel spoke firmly. I saw your men that night. The chief shrugged. Stories. Daniel continued. Your father tried to escape the house. Zara's breathing became shallow. What happened to him? Daniel's voice cracked slightly. He pushed me toward the door. Zara blinked. Why? Daniel looked down. He said, Save my daughter. Tears formed in Zara's eyes. You mean me? Daniel nodded. Yes. The chief rolled his eyes. Oh, please. Daniel continued anyway. Your father ran back into the house, Zara whispered softly. For my mother. Daniel nodded. Yes. But the fire spread too fast. Zara's chest tightened painfully. You never saw him again? Daniel shook his head slowly. No. The chief spoke again. Because he died. Zara wiped her tears. And my mother? Daniel answered quietly. She escaped through the back gate. Zara felt hope rise inside her again. So she really is alive. Daniel nodded. Yes. But the chief clapped slowly. Beautiful story. Zara turned angrily. You think this is funny? The chief's eyes became cold. What I think is that none of this matters anymore. Zara frowned. What do you mean? The chief stepped closer. Because the empire already belongs to me. Daniel shook his head. That is impossible. The chief smiled confidently. There is no document. Zara gripped the gold necklace tighter. Yes, there is. The chief raised an eyebrow. Oh? Zara lifted the necklace. The old woman gave me this. The chief's expression changed slightly. He stepped closer to look. Then he laughed. That little trinket? Zara's voice became steady. She said it proves who I am. The chief studied the necklace more carefully, then his smile slowly faded. That symbol, Daniel spoke quietly. The Akori royal seal. The chief's eyes darkened. Zara stared at him. What does it mean? Daniel explained. Your father created 2 proofs of inheritance. Zara listened carefully. One was the legal document. And the other? She asked. Daniel pointed to the pendant. The royal seal necklace. The chief's voice became sharp. That necklace alone cannot give her control. Daniel shook his head. Not alone. Zara frowned. What do you mean? Daniel spoke slowly. The necklace contains a hidden key. Zara blinked. A key? Daniel nodded. To the vault where the document is stored. The chief's face darkened instantly. That vault was destroyed. Daniel smiled slightly. No. Zara's heart raced. You know where it is? Daniel nodded. Yes. The chief shouted angrily. Seize them. The armed men raised their weapons. Daniel grabbed Zara's hand. Ish, run! But this time Zara didn't move. She looked directly at Chief Bartholomew. You burned my father's house. The chief said nothing. You hunted my mother. Silence. You killed the old woman who helped me. The chief's eyes hardened. Enough. Zara's voice became stronger. But tonight you made one mistake. The chief frowned. What mistake? Zara slowly lifted the necklace again. You told me the truth about who I am. The chief laughed coldly. You think that changes anything? Zara looked straight at him. Yes. The chief gestured toward the armed men surrounding them. You are outnumbered. Zara remained calm, but you forgot something. The chief narrowed his eyes. What? Suddenly, bright lights flashed through the forest, engines roared, several vehicles rushed toward the clearing. High-armed officers jumped out. Police, drop your weapons! The chief's men panicked. Who called them? One shouted. Daniel smiled. I did. The chief's face turned red with anger. You traitor! Daniel stepped forward confidently. For 16 years I've been gathering evidence. Zara looked at him in surprise. You planned this? Daniel nodded. Yes. Police officers surrounded the chief's men. Handcuffs clicked. Weapons dropped to the ground. The chief tried to run, but 2 officers grabbed him. Chief Bartholomew, you are under arrest for fraud, arson, and murder. The chief glared at Zara. This is not over. But the officers dragged him away. The forest slowly became quiet again. Zara felt her legs weaken. Daniel caught her before she fell. It's okay, he said gently. Zara looked at him. You were never a traitor. Daniel shook his head. No. He looked toward the night sky. I made a promise to your father, Zara whispered softly, to protect me. Daniel nodded. Yes. Zara looked at the necklace again. So the empire? Daniel smiled slightly. Still belongs to you. Zara shook her head. I don't care about the empire. Daniel looked surprised. You don't? Zara smiled faintly through her tears. I only want one thing. Daniel understood immediately. Your mother? Zara nodded. Yes. Daniel spoke softly. Then that is where we begin. Zara looked toward the distant lights of the village. For the first time in her life, she felt something new. Hope, because somewhere in the world, her mother was still alive. And now Zara knew the truth about her past, but their journey was far from over. And because finding her mother would reveal even more secrets about the Akori Empire and about the mysterious woman who died protecting her. Zara closed her hand around the golden necklace and whispered quietly, I'm coming, Mom. Where are you watching from? Comment your city and country. What did this story teach you? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more inspiring, emotional stories.